I'd like to call the meeting of the BRA to order at 9:03 a.m. I ask that as a courtesy to all that you ensure that you have silenced your cell phones. Also, I'd like to remind our directors to turn their microphone on and off each time they speak to help with the audio and video recordings. For the record, I'll note that the public meeting notice was properly posted as required by law, and the notice of this board meeting was provided to each of the directors. Director LaChance and Director Ruiz indicated that they would not be present for this meeting. We have now reached the portion of the meeting where we have set aside time to hear from you, the general public. Those interested in providing comments by filling out one of the cards available at the receptionist desk will be called to approach the podium to make their comments at this time. I do not have any yellow cards, so seeing that no one has wished to speak, we will move on to the agenda. The first agenda item is report and possible action on General Manager CEO report by David Collingsworth, General Manager CEO.
Well, good morning.
Morning.
It's good to see you all here. Housekeeping and then a few things to discuss. This morning we're going to do our executive sessions in here to keep us from having to load up in a smaller room and kind of crowd everybody in together. Also, I've asked some of our staff that would typically be in here this morning because of the COVID issue to remain in their offices if they would like. And then if we have questions for some of those folks, we may call them and bring them in. Not that they have COVID, but just, again, to try to eliminate, to try to limit the number of folks that we have in the room. So that's one of the reasons some of the familiar faces aren't in here this morning, but they'll be available if we need them. We have a tremendous amount of issues, projects, initiatives that are moving forward. Today's board meeting hopefully will be done sometime early after lunch, but we have a lot of things, a lot of good business, a lot of things to move forward and discuss with you. One of those is the budget. This is the meeting where we bring for your consideration our budget. One is a planning initiative, and then we also have, kind of related to that, the expansion of a water treatment plant in Williamson County. One of the things that we have seen as we have been able to take the time to look at our planning initiatives in the future is the unbelievable growth that's happening along the I-35 corridor. And I know some of you are seeing that. And it's beginning to reprioritize some of the things that the BRA is having to look at in the near future. So we're excited about the challenges. We have the resources and the folks. You're going to see in our budget this morning how we plan to grow to meet those needs and challenges. And we have just a lot of things to discuss this morning. I want to take a few minutes to introduce you to somebody. We have an award here at the Brazos River Authority that we call the Heart of the Brazos. And it's an award that we give for people that go above and beyond. And I don't want you to think that it's an award that we give because you put in overtime or because you travel a lot or you got your project done. It's an award that we give to folks that are associated with the BRA that go above and beyond and represent not only our organization but themselves. And this morning I want to introduce you to Rodney Sanders. Rodney's and his family are here. Come on up, Rodney. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Rodney. Rodney is an employee of the BRA, works down at our wastewater plant in Sugar Land. And he had a really unique situation. On April the 12th, him and his family were at Surfside down at the beach when they noticed a gentleman by the name of Josh Graham was panicking to help get his kids out of the surf. And Mr. Graham was successful in getting his kids out of the surf, but in doing so, Mr. Graham found himself a little bit too far out. And Rodney was one of just a few people that were bold enough to run out into the ocean and do whatever they could to save this man's life. And the story that I understand has Rodney and others out looking for Mr. Graham with people on the beach pointing to where they think he is, all while the tide is coming in and the rip tide is coming out. And finally, they got a surfboard and they were able to put Mr. Graham on the surfboard and start performing CPR to get him to the bank so that the ambulance could take him off. Folks, that's a heroic action. And to risk your life with your family to go out there and try to save the life of another person is just unbelievable to me. And I couldn't be more proud of you. And I know you weren't there with your BRA hat on, but the fact that you work for us and you're that type of person, we just wanted to present you with this award and tell you how proud of you we are. If you want to hear more about the story, you can go, you could actually Google Josh Graham and go to many of the Houston media sites because there was a lot of media coverage of the event. But after I heard about it through our staff, I just thought it was the heart of the Brazos. So we're going to present you with an award. I want to introduce you also to his wife, Stephanie. Stephanie, if you would come up, and his daughters, Kylie and Corbin, are here also. And then his son, Landon, is here. If y'all would come up, we're going to take a photo, and our presiding officer of our board, Cynthia Flores, is going to come up and be a part of this also. And I've got this plaque here. It says, the Brazos River Authority thanks Rodney Sanders for his outstanding contributions to the community as the second Heart of the Brazos River Authority recipient. He's only the second employee to receive this. And also what I didn't tell you is that Rodney and others are working to get the message out about riptide and the dangers of being on the coast at times so that this doesn't happen to any other family. So thank you very much.
Here she comes. All right, we got it. Thank you. All right, agenda item number 2, discussion and possible action on Clean Rivers Program contract fiscal years 2022 and 2023 by Tiffany Malzahn, Environmental and Compliance Manager. Tiffany, is she
I'm going to be
online?
filling in for Tiffany this morning with
Okay.
this agenda item. You can go to the next slide. So the Clean Rivers Program is something that the Brazos River Authority have benefited from since the early 90s. And it's a fee-driven program through the TCEQ where when you apply for a wastewater treatment plant or other point source discharges, part of that fee goes to the TCEQ. The TCEQ was mandated to turn that fee back over to river authorities for water quality monitoring. It's a grant. It's a non-match. It funds a considerable part of our environmental monitoring scheme. So it's a win-win for both the state of Texas and for the Brazos River Authority. Next. So annually, we get about $400,000 a year, almost $800,000 in a 2-year period. TCEQ is on a 2-year budget. So again, we do a lot of the monitoring that we do in the streams and in the reservoirs are paid for with these contributions. No match required. And we're looking for our approval to Sign another contract with TCQ September 1 of 2021, that should be, for the 2022-2023 fiscal year. So, next. And the resolution, Brazos River Authority Board of Directors hereby authorizes the GM CEO to enter into a contract with the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, whereby TCQ will provide funding to the Brazos River Authority to perform water quality monitoring services and other activities under the Texas Clean Rivers Program. Now, I showed you a budgeted amount of $798,000. We did not put that in here because we got wind last week from TCQ. They think they're going to have more money. Not less money, but more, so we didn't want to put an exact dollar figure in here and then have to come back to you in September and amend that. So what we're asking for is approval to execute a contract with TCQ for those grant funds to do the program.
You've heard the reading of the resolution. Is there a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Who was that?
Second.
Motion made by Director Wilson, second by, was that
Jim Lattimore.
Lattimore? Jim Lattimore, Director Lattimore. Please pull the board.
Presiding Officer Flores.
Yes.
Director Tallis.
Yes.
Director Taylor.
Yes.
Director Abraham.
Yes.
Director Boren.
Yes.
Director Fernandez.
Yes.
Director Henderson.
Yes.
Director Huber.
Yes.
Director Crone.
Yes.
Director Lattimore.
Yes.
Director Leslie.
Yes.
Director Lloyd.
Yes.
Director Luton.
Yes.
Director Rankin.
Yes.
Director Sanderson.
Yes.
Director Savage.
Yes.
Director Smith.
Yes.
Director Wilson.
Yes.
Motion carried. Agenda item 3, discuss and possible action on integrated water resource plan by John King, Special Projects and Strategic Initiatives Manager.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Today, for your consideration, I'll be providing an update on the Integrated Water Resource Plan. It's a project we first mentioned in the last board meeting in May. Since that time, we've been working on refining the scope of work, and now, pending your approval today, we're ready to move forward with the project. Next slide, please. So to start with, kind of what David was alluding to earlier, the growth that's projected in our basin. We're going to see substantial growth out to the 2070 time period. These are updated with the numbers from the 2022 State Water Plan. And as you can see, we're projected to add over 4 million residents. If we'll pay particular attention in the 2070 column to the purple and the blue area there, those counties will experience the most of that impact of growth, and they will include the I-35 corridor, Bell and Williamson County, as well as Fort Bend and Brazoria County. So we recognize the need that this growth is coming. It's here. The feedback we're getting from our customers says it's real. So we feel the need to develop a strategic approach to be able to address these coming needs. Next slide. So again, to kind of set a frame of reference as to what the Integrated Water Resource Plan is, at the highest level, it's going to answer 2 questions for the BRA, and that is, what else does the BRA need to do in addition to the current regional water planning process to meet those coming needs? What other strategies or resources do we need to look at to ensure that we can keep up with the growth? And then the all-important what's next. So once we get through with the projects we're currently working on, then what are the correct sequence of the next projects to ensure that we're being timely with our resources and being able to meet that demand? So by going through this process, we will have both a guide for the development of additional water supply resources, as well as a framework to evaluate those projects and set a prioritization for them. Next slide. So there were several drivers that prompted staff to pursue this type of planning effort. These are just a few of the key ones, and we'll start with water scarcity. We acknowledge the need to develop a forward-looking water management to address droughts, scarce resources, and also competition for the same resources that are out there. A lot of the low-hanging fruit projects are gone, so it's going to take a more in-depth look to be able to ensure those supplies. Also, we want to consider future uncertainty. We need to be able to understand the risk and vulnerabilities that are going to impact us as we continue to grow and ensure we have that availability to provide. Another driver was the need for a comprehensive basin-wide management plan, and that will allow us to maximize our efficiency as we use different strategies from regional and local sources, and also to guide our future investments. We know we have some major capital projects on the horizon, and having a plan, the foundation to know how to implement those will be crucial to our success as well. Next slide, please. So as we go through this process, we have some key concepts that we want to achieve through it, and the IWRP process will help our future water supply by ensuring that it's integrated, like we talked about, a diversified portfolio, using holistic planning to meet the demands throughout the basin. We want to achieve reliability. We'll be able to do that by considering those risks and uncertainties in our planning efforts and analysis. Also, we need resiliency. We need to be able to recover when supply stressors come in and have unavailability, minimizing downtime at our supplies. And finally, we want to achieve sustainability. That's to ensure that the resources we have today are available for future generations within the basin. Next slide. So on this slide, for the initial phase 1 of this project, we're proposing to focus on the Little River watershed. And this is just a sampling of some of the key tasks that you'll see in the scope. But pay particular attention to things like identifying and prioritizing risks, assessing vulnerabilities, identifying and evaluating those water management strategies, and also developing portfolios of projects that'll help us achieve our goals. Another component to consider is included in all this, there's also a component of stakeholder engagement. We will have a stakeholder advisory committee that will support us as we go through the process. They will be giving us feedback and helping us evaluate some of the strategies as we move through it. And also, it'll involve most of the departments within the BRA, so we won't be developing this in a vacuum. We'll have basin-wide and organization there. So, again, this is the pilot study. It'll include all of the components of the basin-wide study. And at the end, when we do the basin-wide study in subsequent phases, it'll be integrated into that plan as well. We anticipate it'll take approximately 18 months to complete this work. Next slide. What this slide represents is our challenge. The bar chart is the information from the State Water Plan. You can see these are projected demand increases out to 2070, and it shows a total of 200,000 acre feet by 2070. That's a significant number. It'll take some very creative strategies and water resources to be able to meet those demands, adding almost 40,000 acre foot per decade. That's our known challenge. On the left-hand side in the stacked boxes, you will see our unknown challenges. Those are the things when we talk about risk and uncertainty, the concepts that'll need to be evaluated, demand, population sensitivities, variability in precipitation as well as evaporation, regulatory and environmental considerations, water quality changes, and also just other regional factors. What other regional projects will impact our projects? So any one of those on the left could significantly impact ultimately what the right-hand side ends up being. So as part of our evaluation, if we include that, it'll better prepare us to be agile and make decisions as we come to the time when conditions do change. In closing, the IWRP project will answer those important what else and what next questions that the BRA will need to ensure we can continue to provide our resource within our basin. And if there are any questions,
I can't stress enough how important it is that this stakeholder process is going to be a part of this, and having our customers in a room and understanding when we play a chess piece in one direction, how does that impact their future capital spending and their water? Georgetown, the city of Georgetown right now is on pace for this fiscal year to have 5,000 new starts of construction, homes and businesses, 5,000. And that's just part of Williamson County. We're seeing that in Bell County. We're seeing it in McLennan County. We're seeing it in Fort Bend. We're just seeing it in Texas. And I think the number one responsibility for an organization like the BRA is to make sure that we're doing all we can from a planning perspective to understand what our options are moving forward.
Director Savage?
So John, would you just help me understand how this works with the water plan? So if we do the study and then we're gonna collaborate with the counties to approach the Water Development Board for the capital funding, or is this something we would just fund ourselves, or?
It would ultimately generate recommendations for the next regional water planning process, and we would feed that information into it.
Okay, thanks.
I also want to be on the record, this isn't being critical of the state water planning process. It still has a role, and if the state water planning process is looking at the future needs of Texas at a 30,000-foot view, this is getting down to a 500-foot view in the weeds of understanding what projects we need to implement for our customers and how that impacts both our rates, our future, and our customers.
Dave, I have a quick question for you. Maybe it's for John. What's the deliverable we're gonna look for coming out of this, resolution? What do we get for that professional services fee?
What you'll get for that is I guess, like I said, the pilot study, and it will be the full plan for the Little River watershed, focusing on Bell and Williamson County. It'll have the portfolio of strategies that have been vetted through the process and analyzed for the risk and uncertainty, and also the, I guess, implementation periods for those. So it'll be that'll be the deliverable for the project.
How much time do we expect it to take for them to be able to complete this work?
18 months on phase one. Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, John, I believe you have a resolution for us.
Be it resolved that the Board of Directors of the Brazos River Authority hereby authorizes the General Manager, CEO, to negotiate and execute a professional services agreement with Stantec Consulting Services Incorporated for the development of Phase 1 of the Integrated Water Resource Plan for an amount not to exceed $1,439,754.
You've heard the reading of the resolution. Is there a motion to adopt?
I move to approve.
Motion made by Director Henderson, a second made by
Crone.
Director Crone. Please poll the board.
Presiding Officer Flores.
Yes?
Director Tallis.
Yes.
Director Taylor.
Yes.
Director Abraham.
Yes.
Director Boren.
Yes.
Director Fernandez.
Yes.
Director Henderson.
Yes.
Director Huber.
Yes.
Director Crone.
Yes.
Director Lattimore.
Yes.
Director Leslie.
Yes.
Director Lloyd.
Yes.
Director Luton.
Yes.
Director Rankin.
Yes.
Director Sanderson.
Yes.
Director Savage.
Yes.
Director Smith.
Yes.
Director Wilson.
Yes.
Motion carried. Item 4, discussion and possible action on Clute-Richwood Wastewater Treatment Operations Contract by Brad Brunette, Central and Lower Basins Regional Manager. Brad?
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the
Good
board.
morning.
I want to make sure I'm not muted here first before I get started. But this is an action item we've got for you today to request authorization to enter a one-year extension of our wastewater operations agreement with the cities of Clute-Richwood. This here is just a photograph of the plant. It's located down in the city of Clute in southern Brazoria County. It's a 4 million gallon per day wastewater plant. We've also got an associated reuse facility that supplies water, treated wastewater from the plant to BASF. We've got 4 BRA employees that are stationed down there at this facility. It treats wastewater from both the cities of Clute and Richwood. We began operating the facility back in October 1 of 2000, so we've been there almost 21 years. It's a cost reimbursable contract, so the cities reimburse us for all of our expenses for operations and maintenance there. The original contract, it was a 20-year contract that expired on September 30th of last year, but we extended that for 1 year. Y'all may recall we had a similar item this time last year where we're looking at this facility. The city was originally planning on sometime in the interim between then and now to potentially go through some type of competitive selection process to see what other options were out there. They aren't unhappy or displeased with BRA, but they had been in a 20-year contract with us, and with regard to the city's purchasing requirements and just transparency, I think that they were considering looking at other options just to see, so they could demonstrate that we were still a good deal. With COVID and everything else, they ultimately never really got around to doing that over the last year, and so they've come to us and asked for another 1-year extension, and they may ultimately explore some type of competitive process between the end of this year and next year. But they're wanting us to extend the contract for another year, so that would start on October 1 of this year and go through September 30 of 2022. The proposed budget that we've got for 22 is $858,153, and we receive a 5% management fee for that fee, so that's about $43,000 is what our management fee that we earn is. So we would request that you grant authorization for us to execute that 1-year extension that will carry us through September 30th of next year, 2022. Questions?
For employees, that's part of your cost reimbursement, right?
Yes, sir.
So this is be on top of all costs.
Well, we pay, when we operate, we've got salary expenses, we pay for chemicals, electricity, everything that we pay for, including the salaries, are reimbursed by the customers. Yes, sir. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
It seems to me that a 1-year extension, we gave them a 1-year extension last year. Has there been discussion of more than a 1-year extension? Is there any reason to say, why don't we do a 3-year extension, which gives you guys adequate time to go through the bid process? Is there any reason not to do a more than 1-year extension?
We've offered to do 3 years or 5 years, anything like that. The cities have still wanted to just go forward for a year, so this was their request that we do another year. We did talk to them about a longer extension, both to give them more time, and frankly, it helps us, with our planning and with just continuity of operations for our people down there. But the 1 year is what they had asked for again, and so that's what we're bringing to you.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet.
All right, read the resolution, please.
Whereas the Brazos River Authority has operated and maintained the Clute-Richwood Regional Sewerage System under a 20-year cost reimbursable agreement with the cities of Clute and Richwood that expired on September 30th, 2020, and was extended for 1 year through September 30th, 2021, and whereas the cities have requested another 1-year extension of the existing agreement to begin on October 1st, 2021, and to expire on September 30th, 2022. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Directors of the Brazos River Authority hereby authorizes the General Manager, CEO, to execute a 1-year extension of the Clute-Richwood Regional Sewerage System Agreement to begin on October 1st, 2021, and to expire on September 30th, 2022.
You've heard the reading of the resolution. Is there a motion to adopt? Who's that? Director Leslie. Second made by? Is there a second? By Director Henderson. Please poll the board.
Presiding Officer Flores,
Yes.
Director Tallis,
Here, yes.
Director Taylor,
Yes.
Director Abraham, Director Boren,
Yes.
Director Fernandez,
Yes.
Director Henderson,
Yes.
Director Huber,
Yes.
Director Crone,
Yes.
Director Lattimore,
Yes.
Director Leslie,
Yes.
Director Lloyd,
Yes.
Director Luton,
Yes.
Director Rankin, Director Sanderson,
Yes.
Director Savage,
Yes.
Director Smith,
Yes.
Director Wilson.
Yes.
Motion carried. Item number 5, report and possible discussion on report of external audit plan by David Thompson, Chief Financial Officer. David.
Good morning. I have Aaron with me here. This is our third audit with Baker Tilly for our financial statements. And Aaron's going to walk you through the audit plan for next year, or starting this year. Oh, I always talk too soft. He'll be starting the external audit. We have started our interim audits already, and we look forward to another good year with Baker Tilly. So I'll turn it over to Aaron to walk through the plan. Maybe go to the next slide.
Oh, there we go. Perfect. Thank you, David. Good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Aaron Worthman. I'm the partner on the audit engagement, and I'm pleased to present the fiscal year 2021 audit plan. What I want to do first is just give an audit team introduction so you folks know the individuals leading your audit engagement. Then want to go through the audit plan, give you a little perspective into what is it that we do as part of our audit. Want to go through some required communications as you charge with governance, and then open up to any questions you folks might have. So for those that aren't familiar with our firm or the individuals on the team, one of the good things is we're able to keep the same audit team. So we have the same senior manager, same partner, and same senior. Our firm and our group specifically specializes in working with entities such as yourselves. For instance, I work with San Antonio Water System as the lead audit partner, San Antonio River Authority, Guadalupe Blanco River Authority, and then also Lower Colorado River Authority, again, conducting all the audits for your peer organizations in Texas. But the good news is it is the exact same audit team, so your staff isn't going to have to train me with your nuances or train our team with the nuances of your organization. So just to go through what we're doing, the biggest thing that we're going to do is provide an audit of your financial statements in accordance with U.S. generally accepted auditing standards. Those are the standards that we're required to follow as your audit firm. In addition to that, we'll also provide a report on internal control of our financial reporting and on compliance and other matters in accordance with government auditing standards. Those are additional standards that have to do with our continuing professional education, the supervision of your audit team, due care while we conduct the audit, our independence, and then also quality control. If for some reason you had expenditures that exceeded $750,000 from the federal government, we would be required to perform a single audit, and that's being determined right now. And then we'll also issue, which you've seen in years past, our audit results letter that will include any significant deficiencies and material weaknesses that we detect as part of our audit process. I just wanted to let you know that I had mentioned earlier, we provide an audit opinion on your financial statements. We as an audit firm do not provide an opinion on internal controls. However, if we detect any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in regard to the internal controls, we're required to communicate those to you like we have in prior years. Just to go over the field work, as David had mentioned, we wrapped up our preliminary field work earlier in July. Our final field work and review is scheduled for October and November, and we plan to present our audit and your financial statements in the December or January timeframe. Again, timelines consistent with prior years. So just to give you some perspective on what we do, if we were to take a step back and look at your audit, roughly 30% of what we do has to do with taking a look at your internal controls and testing those internal controls. And I would say most of that testing revolves around your information technology universe or your IT universe, which makes sense just given the dynamic nature of cybersecurity and the internal controls relative to that. So much so, in fact, that we have a certified information systems auditor as part of our audit team that goes about and conducts that testing. But that's about 30% of what we do. 40% about what we do then is relative to substantive tests. That would be confirming your cash and investments, taking a look at the fair values of those investments, taking a look at your fixed asset additions, the retirements, taking a look at your disbursements. But again, that's 40% of what we do, and that's generally what we call would be the nuts and bolts of our audit, if you will. And then the remaining 30% has to do with taking a look at your financial report and then the planning of our audit engagement. Part of what I've done here is I've shown the areas of significance, and I think if you were to review these, most wouldn't come as any surprise. You know, obviously we're going to spend a significant time looking at IT, your accounts receivable, your billing practices, your capital assets, since that makes up a majority of your balance sheet. We'll take a look at your significant estimates, the biggest being your pension liability, and then again, spend a significant amount of time on your financial reporting. You've received a letter from us that is what we call our pre-audit communication letter. There's a lot of good information in there about the audit process. But one thing that I definitely wanted to let you folks know is this, if you were to go back maybe, I don't know, 6, 7 years ago, all the audit communication used to be one way. You'd have the audit firm come in and they'd present their audit results. Maybe they would have done a pre-audit plan and communicated that to you. But part of what we're required to do is have a two-way communication. In that, we want to make sure you as governance have input into the audit process. So what we'll do, there's a number of things. We have fraud risk interviews with many individuals throughout your organization, where I'll discuss their thoughts on fraud, internal controls, areas of significance, areas of concern they have. Some of those individuals will be board members, so I'll have those communications. But certainly, if any of you have any thoughts or concerns about the audit process or things that you want to discuss with me and provide input, certainly you can do that in this forum, or otherwise you can reach out to me offline and we can have those discussions. But again, we definitely welcome those thoughts. And then lastly, we're looking forward to another successful audit with the authority. We anticipate this year's audit should go pretty smoothly. If we take a look at the year, for the most part, aside from COVID, it really should be a straightforward audit. There's no major accounting changes on this year's audit, so should be, in our experience, should be very straightforward and pretty much a very efficient audit from what we can tell. So definitely look forward to working with your staff, but with that, I'll open up to any questions that you folks might have.
Any questions? Director Sanderson.
I gather you currently don't have an expectation of having a single audit.
Pardon? As of right now, that has not been determined. Do you happen to know?
Okay. At the budget level, though, you didn't show yourself getting close to the 750.
That's with federal funding.
Yeah,
That's correct.
probably not. Okay. On your focus, on your current year focus versus the prior year focus, can you give us any kind of a analysis of that? Is there any change whatsoever as far as the focus slide is concerned?
Sure.
Probably
So,
not.
last year we did conduct the audit, I guess, under the COVID environment.
Mhm.
So we're going to have a very, we'll be looking at a little two ways this year. We'll still be looking at some of the COVID processes, but we also understand individuals are back in the office. So the big thing that we're going to be doing is, has there been any changes in the processes, the controls, things like that from the COVID environment that we came into and then starting to transition out of. So again, a big thing is looking at any changes. The good news, as I had mentioned earlier, there are no significant accounting changes this year. So that should make this process easier. And I believe at the tail end of this year, you also have a new ERP system, if I'm not mistaken.
Mhm.
So as part of that, we'll be taking a look at some of those things as well. Again, if those happen within the audit period.
Right. As far as your analysis and documentation of the internal control environment, what do you see as far as updates this year versus the prior year?
So our audit plan for IT changes every year. There's rotational testing that we do. So to take a step back, if we were to look at some of the major processes that we test controls over, and test of controls, those would be your payroll and your disbursements. If those controls haven't changed, we do not have to do a full test of controls over those. So this year, we'll go about and conduct those disbursement testing. For the other processes, we have to run some transactions through there just to validate and make sure those processes haven't changed. Same thing with taking a look at the information technology. There's general information technology controls we need to look at, but we are able to rotate some of those. So every year, as part of this process, our Certified Information Systems Auditor will look at any additional risks identified and, again, any major changes. We'll continue to look at deprovisioning and provisioning, user access to your IT systems and things like that. But for the most part, again, as long as these controls and areas haven't changed, should be a fairly consistent audit plan. Now, I had mentioned earlier about these SAS 99 risk interviews. If anything comes to our attention that someone says, hey, we think you really need to look at our procurement a little closer because someone has a feeling that there may have been some circumvented controls or they just have concerns, we would put those into our audit plan. As of now, through those discussions, no concerns have been brought to our attention. But certainly those would be areas we'd look at if you as governance or somebody in management had controls over things like that.
With respect to your, you brought up a good, for example, with respect to, say, the procurement processes and the environment and maybe doing some testing of how the procurement processes are happening.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something you expect to have any focus on in this year? And how did you focus on that last year, if at all?
Sure. So what we would have done last year, we would have looked at the controls over those processes. Mm-hmm. And as long as, and again, we sample, as long as we didn't identify any issues with the sample, we wouldn't have to do additional testing. And again, I just gave that as an example.
Was there any additional focus at all in that particular area last year?
There was not. There was
Okay.
not, because we didn't run into any issues.
Okay. On slide number 7, I noticed you talked about the process and the folks that you talked to and all that kind of stuff. I think we have an admin and a finance or / audit committee of some sort. Do we not here? I didn't see that mentioned anywhere on that slide, so I'm just wondering how that fits into the picture.
When we present the final.
Go back to slide number 7, if you don't mind. Or page number 7.
So in January, we'll bring to the board, and Aaron will be back again, and we'll have the audit and admin committee first, usually at 8 o'clock that morning, and then go into the regular sessions on the board meeting to discuss the audit, completion of the audit.
That's fine. I just noticed that none of that was even mentioned, that even the existence of a committee was
But
even
that's
mentioned.
the procedure we followed last year, and we'll continue to do that this year.
All right, good. All right, that's it for me.
Okay?
All right. All right. Thank you very much. Thanks, Director Sanderson, for all your questions.
My pleasure.
I don't see any other questions from anyone else, so we'll move on to agenda item number 6, discussion and possible action on surplus personal property by David Thompson, Chief Financial Officer.
As you know, when we're trying to get rid of our personal properties, we have to bring to the board an approval to dispose of them. And that is a state statute, and so therefore, and once we do surplus it and get the approval, then we'll turn around and we'll put them on a well-advertised auction. We do have kind of a backlog of surplus, so you'll have to be patient for the next few board meetings with many line items. What I'd like to do is just kind of walk through the items that we have. Can you turn to the next slide? This one is focused on Possum Kingdom and environmental services. Last time we did IT, so we're just trying to take the big chunks out and go through them. I'll just go through them. Let you read them. So if there's no questions, I'd like to have the resolution read. And
Seeing
Good
no
luck.
questions, please read the resolution.
Be it resolved that the Board of Directors of the Brazos River Authority hereby authorizes the General Manager, CEO, to dispose of the following surplus personal property under the terms and conditions that are in the best interest of the Brazos River Authority. Be it further resolved that the Board authorizes the General Manager, CEO, in certain instances, to continue to use and/or maintain previously authorized surplus property in a manner that is in the best interest of the Brazos River Authority until appropriate replacement property is received and placed in service. Possum Kingdom, Lot 1, Quantity 1, Brunswick Boston Whaler 19-foot Justice boat with 1 galvanized tandem axle trailer, Quantity 1, auto tether. Lot 2, Dive equipment, Quantity 5, regulators, Quantity 5, Sunto mosquito dive watches, Quantity 7, wetsuits. Lot 3, Quantity 2, metal cash boxes with key lock and keys with combination lock, 1 DocuBind binding system. Lot 4, Quantity 1, L-shaped office desk, Quantity 1, 2 shelf bookcase, Quantity 1, cabinet with 2 drawers and 2 open bookshelves, Quantity 6, office cubicles with upper cabinets, lower file cabinets, drawers, and desks. Lot 5, Quantity 5, wheeling light bars, Quantity 7, bodyguard dual weapons rack for shotguns and AR-15, electrical and manual key lock, Quantity 6, Havas shield consoles, Quantity 4, Decatur in-car radar system, Quantity 3, red and blue single row LED light bars. Lot 6, Quantity 1, Yamaha Kodiak ATV, VIN number 5 Yankee 4 Alpha Juliet 06 Yankee 23 Alpha 014681. Lot 7, Quantity 1, Millermatic 251 wire welder. Lot 8, Quantity 2, fold down boat seats, Quantity 1 set, truck fenders, aluminum dual tandem, rear view mirrors, 2 forward, Y seating boat seats, 2 on shock absorber pedestal. Lot 9, 1999 Ford F-250, VIN 1 Foxtrot Tango November Foxtrot 20 Foxtrot X-ray Echo Bravo 50344, 7.3 liter Power Stroke automatic transmission, mileage 79,513. Lot 10, Quantity 3 Dell Axum by 51 Palm Pilot. Lot 11, Quantity 1 Light All portable light. Lot 12, 2009 Ford Expedition 4x4, VIN 1 Foxtrot Mike Foxtrot Uniform 16529 Echo Bravo 04346, mileage 117 to 98. Lot 13, 2010 Ford Expedition 4x4, VIN 1 Foxtrot Mike Juliet Uniform 1 Golf 50 Alpha Echo Bravo 07744, mileage 125,764. Lot 14, Quantity 2, Thermal Transfer Products, Air Dryer Heat Exchanger. Lot 15, 2007 Ford F-150 Extended Cab Pickup, VIN 1 Foxtrot Tango Papa X-ray 14 Victor 17 Kilo Charlie 60394, 98,513 miles. Lot 16, 2000 Ford F-250 XL Super Duty, VIN 1 Foxtrot Tango November Foxtrot 20 Foxtrot 5 Yankee Echo Charlie 96149, 7.3 Power Stroke Diesel V8, mileage 98,401. Lot 17, 2003 Ford F-350 Super Duty, VIN 1 Foxtrot Tango Sierra Whiskey 3 1 Papa 93 Echo Charlie 74681, V8 Power Stroke Turbo Diesel, 92,180 miles. Lot 18, Quantity 6 Satina Metal Screen Front Cage Partitions for 2010 to 2012 Ford Expedition. Quantity 7 Satina Rear Partitions for 2010-2012 Ford Expedition. Lot 19, 2009 Ford F-150 4x4 regular cab, VIN 1 Foxtrot Tango Papa Foxtrot 14 Victor X-ray 9 Kilo Bravo 16056, 5.4 Triton engine, mileage 141,964. Lot 20, Quantity 6 night vision goggles. Lot 21, Quantity 1 Mercury 225L Optimax motor, approximately 10 years old. Lot 22, Quantity 1 Millermatic Model 350P welder. Quantity 2 Miller Dial Arc 250 AC/DC welder. Amrox Model 5007 bandsaw. Quantity 1 GE 3-phase motor. Environmental Services. Lot 1, quantity 8 BOD bottle baskets, quantity 1 box miscellaneous lab equipment, approximately 5 trays, 2 test tube racks, 1 small stir plate, 1 large multiple position stir plate, quantity 1 box of 7 books about wastewater treatment and testing, assorted tubing, quantity 1 box of 5 test tube holders and miscellaneous parts for lab equipment, quantity 1 box dishwasher safe baskets, BOD bottle stoppers and caps, quantity 1 box rinse wash bottles, quantity 1 box aquarium air pump and miscellaneous accessories, quantity 5 carboy, quantity 1 box of crucibles, approximately 10 various sizes, trays, approximately 3 plastic trays, various disposable aluminum pans, quantity 1 box of 2 small desiccators and 4 plastic trays, quantity 1 pipette washer. Lot 2, quantity 1 marble balance table, weighs approximately 650 pounds. Lot 3, quantity 1 drying oven. Lot 4, quantity 1 step ladder. Quantity 1 box miscellaneous lab supplies, drawer organizers, miscellaneous cables, volumetric pipettes. Quantity 4 small trash recycling cans. 1 thin rubber mat, 5 dishwasher safe baskets, 5 small bins. Quantity 1 box miscellaneous small tools. Quantity 1 box miscellaneous desk accessories, plastic paper sorters, disposable glove, wall hanger, 2 3-ring binders. Quantity 2 box miscellaneous office supplies with 2 wall mount paper towel holders, 1 first aid kit, 1 6-hook coat hanger rack, 2 digital clocks, paper sorting baskets, metal bookends, clipboards. Quantity 7 whiteboards and corkboards. Quantity 6 13-gallon trash cans, 2 wet floor caution signs, 1 biohazard waste container, 1 emergency shower test kit, quantity 1 HP CE505A laser jet cartridge.
Good job.
You've heard the reading of the resolution.
Sorry about that.
Need a standing ovation there. Do I hear a motion to adopt? Director Crone, and a second made by Director Henderson. Please poll the board.
Presiding Officer Flores,
Yes.
Director Tallis,
Yes.
Director Taylor,
Yes.
Director Abraham, Director Boren, Director Fernandez,
Yes.
Director Henderson,
Yes.
Director Huber,
Yes.
Director Crone,
Yes.
Director Lattimore,
Yes.
Director Leslie,
Yes.
Director Lloyd,
Yes.
Director Luton,
Yes.
Director Rankin,
Yes.
Director Sanderson,
Yes.
Director Savage,
Yes.
Director Smith,
Yes.
Director Wilson.
Yes.
Motion carried. At this time, we will take a 10-minute break. Okay, moving on. We are back in session. It's 5 after 10. Thank you, everybody, for the prompt 10-minute break. Agenda item number 7, discussion and possible action on East Williamson County Regional Water System, EWCRWS Expansion Engineering Services by Brad Brunette, Central and Lower Basin Regional Manager. Brad, take it away.
Yeah, good morning again, everyone. This is an action item here as well. We're going to be seeking your approval to enter a professional services agreement with CDM Smith for engineering work associated with expansion and improvement of our East Williamson County Regional Water System. We're really at an important pivotal point out with that system right now in East Williamson County. Some of you may recall we purchased it from the city of Taylor back in 2004. We expanded it shortly thereafter, I think from 4.5 million gallons per day up to the current capacity of 12.3. We constructed a new deep water intake in Lake Granger, maybe 5 to 10 years ago, probably closer to 10. And we've since added a couple of other customers to the system. So we've got the City of Taylor, the Jonah Water Special Utility District, and the Lone Star Regional Water Authority. And right now, I think those 3 customers collectively supply about 15,000 connections and close to 50,000 people. And we've really kind of gone in the last 15 or 20 years from a small town, single town water treatment plant to a truly regional system. And what we're seeing right now with the growth, John King pointed to it earlier in Williamson County, it's really starting to explode in that part of the county as well. So again, we're really at kind of a critical juncture with some work that we need to get done out there. So I've got several map slides here just to kind of help orient you with the components of the system. If you look here, starting at the top right portion of the screen, The graphic here shows the raw water intake on Lake Granger, and then you can see the raw water pipeline that takes water from the plant, or takes water from the lake to the plant itself, and then the treated water pipeline leaving the plant. You can see that intake structure, when we constructed it, it's sized to ultimately be able to expand to 50 million gallons per day. Right now, with the pumps that we have there, it's at 15 million gallons per day, and then the pipeline that we built there from the intake structure to the plant itself is also sized for ultimately 50 million gallons per day. This image here really focuses on the treatment plant itself, so we're kind of zoomed into that blue box you saw on the previous slide, and here you can see that raw water pipeline coming into the plant on the right side of the image, as well as some of the various components of the treatment plant itself. And then this slide here focuses on the treated water pipeline that takes treated water from the plant to the customer take points. That's the green line that you see here. It's about 3.7 miles long and has a capacity that's estimated at about 18 million gallons per day. And this is one of the critical things that we'll be looking at as a part of this study as well, or this evaluation. We're not just looking at expanding the plant. We're having to look at all the components from the lake all the way to where the customers take the water. So this chart shows historical demand or water use from the plant dating back to 2010. It kind of really paints the picture to me of the necessity for expansion of the system at this point. The blue line shows the maximum daily demand on the plant each year, and so that's, if you look at the peak day of water use from the plant in each of those years, that's what's plotted there. And you typically see your maximum demand peaks in the summer months, and that's ultimately what we have to build the facility to handle, are those summertime peaks. The green line shows the average daily demand on the plant each year, and so you can see that it's kind of steadily been increasing since 2010, but really you see the dramatic increases over the last couple of years, and particularly from 2019 to 2020. We saw a peak demand of slightly over 9 million gallons per day in August of 2020, and again, the current capacity of the plant is about 12.3. So we really are at a point where we've got to expand in order to keep up. This slide shows peak day demand projections looking ahead through 2024. So here we're looking forward through the next several years. The second column from the left shows numbers for Jonah. The third column are the numbers for Taylor, and then the fourth column are the numbers for Lone Star. And the fifth column is the total. And you can see if you add all of those up in 2024, we're projecting 12.2 million gallons per day. The numbers on the right side of the table in the sixth through ninth column show the current capacity of different components of the system. Again, the treatment plant capacity is 12.3 million gallons per day. The next columns you see there, the high service PS. That's the high service pump station where we actually have the pumps that pumps the treated water from the plant to the customers. The firm capacity of that system as it stands today is about 15.8 MGD, and that's how much water we could move with all but one of the pumps operating. With all the pumps operating, it's 21, and then the 27-inch water line, again, the treated water line is about 18. So I want to point out, though, these are demand projections from the 2021 Brazos G water plan, but with the increases in demand that we've actually seen at the plant over the last couple of years, plus what we're hearing from our customers directly, it's really been Jonah that's been talking about much higher demands, and here more recently, the city of Taylor as well. So I think if you look at these demand numbers in 2020, that peak of 10.8 was a little bit higher than what we saw. But I'm afraid that when we look out to 2024, we're going to be looking at something greater than 12.2, just based on what's been going on out there the last couple of years if it continues. So we've gone through a request for proposal process to select an engineering firm to evaluate the entire system and help us plan and design the next phase of expansion and any other improvements that we need to make. We received 4 proposals as a part of that process. Of those 4, we brought 2 firms in to interview, and we ultimately selected CDM Smith for the job. They've got about 300 Texas-based staff members with expertise covering all the various areas that we need for this project. You can see the dots on the map there, that they do a lot of work in this part of the state. They're very familiar with Williamson County and the growth challenges that we're facing there, and they're also familiar with us and our customers. They actually do most of the water treatment plant expansion and distribution work for Bell County WCID number 1, as well as the City of Georgetown and City of Round Rock. And Alan Wilkie and Steve Link with CDM are here with us today as well. So we've been in the process of working with them to develop a scope of work for the project over the last little while. The list that you see here, and what we'll continue on to the next slide, covers some of the major task areas of the work that we're seeking authorization for. The data acquisition and review at the top, that's pretty self-explanatory. The next one there in the water demand and availability assessment, we'll be looking at water availability factors as well as future growth projections in order to adequately size and schedule the expansion and improvement work. And again, I think looking at the growth projections moving forward from where we stand today is going to look a lot different than what it looked like when Brazos G was looking at them for the 2021 water plan. The system condition and assessment will evaluate the condition of all the major system components. So again, that's the intake, raw water pipeline, the treatment plant, and the treated water line. And that treated water line is really a critical component as well, because it doesn't matter how big the plant is if we're treating water, if we can't, get it to the customers. And that line is, it existed when we purchased the facility, so it's pretty old, hasn't been looked at in a while, and its capacity is estimated at 18 million gallons per day. So we know that ultimately we're going to need more than that. So, one of the critical parts of this effort is going to be looking at that line, seeing what kind of shape it's in, seeing if we want to continue to use it and ultimately lay a parallel line in the future or replace that line with something larger. So those are some of the things that we're going to be looking at with the condition assessment, not just at the plant itself. The process and hydraulic assessment will be evaluating current treatment processes and associated regulatory requirements with that, as well as looking for bottlenecks and potential failure points within the system. And again, that treated water pipeline is one of those potential failure points that could cause us problems. The one on the bottom, the plant scale pilot testing, that's planned to be performed to see if there are things that we can do at the treatment plant just from an operational or a process improvement where we might be able to re-rate it to a higher capacity quickly without having to spend dollars on improvements and capital. So that's a possibility as well. Aquifer storage and recovery would involve treating extra surface water from the lake during the lower demand times of the year, such as the winter time. If we've got extra capacity there, we could treat that water, potentially store it in the ground in the aquifer there in the county for future use. We've actually talked with you some about aquifer storage and recovery in the past, and we've looked at it to some degree at East Williamson County, and we think that it's potentially a viable solution there, as well as CDM thinks that that area of the county is potentially an area that we could implement aquifer storage and recovery. And I'd say there's maybe a handful of those projects that have been implemented in the state up to this point, but it's something that the state's put a lot of focus on. And there's a lot to be said for being able to store water in the ground if you've got a system that will work, because you don't have the evaporation, and basically it's an underground reservoir that you don't lose water to. So there's still a lot of work to be done there for us to get to a functioning system, but that's something we're going to be looking at here as well. The water quality assessment and blending investigation, that will be looking at providing a plan for how to integrate water from the Trinity groundwater well that we drilled a couple of years ago into that system, as well as future Trinity wells, and ultimately potentially water from the Carrizo-Wilcox aquifer further to the east. Topographic survey, that's pretty self-explanatory. And then the expansion evaluation, that's where we'll actually be looking at components of the plant, the filters, clarifiers, and other plant components to see what expansions we might need to make to increase our capacity. And finally, all of this will culminate into a preliminary engineering report that will hopefully give us a roadmap forward, as well as a schedule moving forward for expansion elements, as well as improvements to some of the existing facilities that we have. So this slide summarizes the duration and cost associated with the various tasks. You can see that the total not to exceed cost proposed is a little under $2.7 million. One of the larger cost items that you see is that system condition assessment. You can see there it's $683,202. And I mentioned assessment of that treated water pipeline. So that cost element, about $430,000 of that is for a smart ball technology assessment of that line. And I can let the engineers talk more about how that actually works, but it's a newer technology where you insert something into the pipeline, as I understand it. It moves through the pipeline and not only visually can look at the interior of the pipe, but can look at the condition of the pipe, the wall thickness, and things like that. So that's a significant cost item, but I think, again, it's a critical thing that we get a better understanding of that line and what we're going to do with it moving forward. Another large cost is the $493,135 that's associated with that aquifer storage and recovery task. And again, that one's going to be broken into two parts. And so whether or not we move forward with the whole thing will depend on what we find in the first part of it. So we may not ultimately go that route, may not ultimately spend that money. And then there's also some other contingencies built into some of these other tasks. So the ultimate cost that we end up having for this phase of the project may not be up to this level, but we basically tried to get everything in here that is potentially foreseeable, and that will kind of represent the maximum bounds of what the contract would look like. With regard to duration, we're expecting CDM can complete the effort within about 12 months of once we start. And I think that's the last slide that I have other than a resolution, so I'll stop and try to answer any questions that you have.
I really like your, David, I like the fact that you're getting onto the aquifer storage and recovery. I think that's going to be critical on not clean water. I'm glad you're getting together. And then that colonoscopy, that pipe assessment you're doing. That's real nice to do too, so.
Yeah, thank you. It's that treated water pipeline is it's everything that's a part of the system so far. We've expanded, we've looked at, but that treated water pipeline is one of the things that we haven't really taken a close look at. So we definitely need to do that. And then aquifer storage and recovery is, I think, going to be a bigger part of the state's water needs into the future. And so hopefully we'll have a good project that we can implement there.
Brad, how old is the treated water pipeline? Do you know?
I don't know. We bought the facility from the city of Taylor in 2004, and I think I've read where that plant was constructed around 1990. David, is that?
I was going to say 85, so late 80s, early 90s.
Now, it's treated, so it shouldn't be too scaled up, if we're managing our water chemistry, right?
Yeah, you would think so.
Well, it's a big assumption to think that you're going to get 18 million through it if it's that old. And, I just am very familiar with this from my own background.
Right.
But, okay, I think I like the steps, so I was just curious.
One of the things when we were talking with CDM about that inspection of that line, they've used it at another project. I don't remember the client, but they actually found a shopping cart inside a treated water pipeline. How does that happen? How did it get there? But, who knows? There's no telling what you can find in there. And we think that it's 18 million gallons per day based on the size of it. But, if you got obstructions or problems in there, then we may not have what we think, and we need to know that.
Thanks.
So I think it's a great thing. It's something that definitely needs. I'm curious, is there a way to make this timeframe go a little bit faster? And I ask that because I know how fast Williamson County is growing. It's an alarming rate. And I wonder if we're going to get behind where we need to be with the actual expansion if this takes 12 months. Is there a way to just speed any of it up?
Potentially, we've talked some with the CDM about that, and we'll definitely visit with them further as we finalize the contract to try to expedite it. A couple of things that we've talked about for coming up with, water quickly is that pilot study to see if we could potentially re-rate the plant. That's potentially something that, according to CDM, we could implement relatively quickly. And then we have the existing groundwater well at the site. It's ready to go. We've received a little bit of pushback from our customers with regard to water quality. Once we start blending that water, it's going to change what they've been getting. And so we've been cautiously approaching that. But that's also something that I think we could implement relatively quickly. If we do get behind, we could put that well into service and have water flowing pretty quickly. But in terms of the study timeframe here, I don't want to put Alan or Steve too much on the spot, but we'll be talking with y'all about how we can expedite this.
And Director Henderson, I had your same concern, and I think if we can do whatever we need to do to help expedite and stay on top of the project, so that way it finishes in the timely manner. Yes.
Definitely.
At least some good, strong monitoring.
Let me ask a more pointed question. The project's going to take 12 months. How long is it going to take, if we approve it today, how long is it going to take until the project actually gets started?
I think we could start this phase of it in August.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So is that number the right number to be in the resolution? Or do we need to raise it a little bit to get an expediting fee into it?
Director Henderson, what was your question?
So is that number, the 2 million number, is that the right number to put in the resolution? Or do we need to raise the number in the resolution to make it go faster?
Well, that's a guarantee that you'll be paying more. If it is 5 minutes faster,
I mean,
you know?
yeah, but
Yeah.
My recommendation will be let's approve it for this amount, and then let us go sit down with CDM, and if there are things
Yeah.
that we can do to speed up the schedule, and because we want to understand and vet what those associated costs might look like, then we can come back to the board in September
With a
that
contract
schedule.
amendment of some sort.
Excuse me?
With a contract amendment of some
That's
sort.
correct.
Right. That's, yeah.
okay, I appreciate that. Yeah.
So I like that recommendation, and Brad, can you make sure we have something on the agenda for September board meeting?
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome, thank you. All right, everybody, thank you for your questions. Can our recording please read the resolution?
Be it resolved that the Board of Directors of the Brazos River Authority hereby authorizes the General Manager, CEO, to negotiate and execute a contract with CDM Smith Incorporated for engineering services associated with conducting an engineering evaluation, engineering design, preparation of subsequent bidding and contract documents, and resulting construction activities as required to make improvements and expand components of the East Williamson County Regional Water System, to integrate the existing groundwater well, and to make recommendations on the construction and use of future groundwater wells, and
You've heard the reading of the resolution.
I'm
Is
sorry,
there-
ma'am.
Further.
Oh, sorry.
I apologize.
Pause.
Be it further resolved that the fee for engineering services associated with the initial assessment, study, engineering, evaluation phase shall not exceed $2,697,471, and engineering fees for subsequent phases of the project, including design, bidding, and construction, will be presented to the Brazos River Authority Board of Directors for future consideration.
You've heard the reading of the resolution. Is there a motion to adopt? Motion made by Director Wilson, a second by Director Huber. Please poll the board.
Presiding Officer Flores,
Yes?
Director Tallis,
Yes.
Director Taylor,
Yes.
Director Abraham,
Yes.
Director Warren,
Yes.
Director Fernandez,
Yes.
Director Henderson,
Yes.
Director Huber,
Yes.
Director Crone,
Yes.
Director Lattimore,
Yes.
Director Leslie,
Yes.
Director Lloyd,
Yes.
Director Luton,
Yes.
Director Rankin,
Yes.
Director Sanderson,
Yes.
Director Savage,
Yes.
Director Smith,
Yes.
Director Wilson.
Yes.
Motion carried. Board, we're going to move on to agenda item number 16, which is executive session. The Board of Directors will conduct a closed meeting and executive session on the following matters. A, to consult with the attorney regarding litigation with respect to Allen's Creek Reservoir pursuant to the authority granted by Section 551.071 of the Texas Open Meetings Act, codified as Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code, and to deliberate the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property in Austin County in relation to Allen's Creek Reservoir pursuant to the authority granted by Section 551.072 of the Texas Open Meetings Act. B, to deliberate regarding the position of General Manager and CEO pursuant to the authority granted by Section 551.074 of the Texas Open Meetings Act, codified as Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code. If you are not specifically involved in the presentation of this executive session agenda item, both of these items, please excuse yourself from the boardroom at this time. We ask that the public please wait in the break room in order to keep the hallways clear until the executive session is finished. Okay, Thank you. The Board of Directors hereby reconvenes into open session at 11:35 a.m. We had two items, one on Allen's Creek. Is there a resolution for the board to have read for consideration? Seeing no resolution for item A. There it is. I see it.
Shall I read it?
Yes.
Please do.
Be it resolved by the Board of Directors of the Brazos River Authority that the General Manager CEO is hereby authorized to increase the contractual not-to-exceed amount for legal services in relation to Allen's Creek and Texas House Bill 2846 by $200,000.
You've heard the reading of the resolution. Is there a motion to adopt? Motion by Director Huber, second by Jim Lattimore. Please poll the board.
Presiding Officer Flores.
Yes?
Director Tallis.
Yes.
Director Taylor.
Yes.
Director Abraham.
Yes.
Director Bourne.
Yes.
Director Fernandez.
Yes.
Director Henderson.
Yes.
Director Huber.
Yes.
Director Crone.
Yes.
Director Lattimore.
Yes.
Director Leslie.
Yes.
Director Lloyd.
Yes.
Director Luton.
Yes.
Director Rankin.
Yes.
Director Sanderson.
Yes.
Director Savage.
Yes.
Director Smith.
Yes.
Director Wilson.
Yes.
Motion carried. The second executive session item was item B, to deliberate regarding the position of General Manager CEO. Is there a resolution for the board to consider?
Yes, there is.
Please read the resolution.
Be it resolved by the Board of Directors of the Brazos River Authority that the sustained exemplary performance by the General Manager CEO warrants an annual salary increase of 10% of his existing salary and justifies a one-time merit bonus of 10% of his existing salary.
That's not.
You've heard the reading of the resolution.
Hold on, should we reread that?
That's not.
Okay.
Yeah.
The English is better one.
Well, we need to fill it in. We need to fill it in first, so it's accurate, and then start at the top.
And which, Jared, what you were reading isn't exactly what's up there. You need to read off that screen.
All right, we'll
And that-
reread that,
and that's
Jared.
a
Thank you.
One-time bonus.
Well, it's gonna be rough on the English.
Well, that's what a bonus is.
And that should say bonus of 10% of existing salary.
Right.
And a one-time, it'll be a one-time bonus.
Existing salary.
It's salary, not bonus.
Yeah.
Where is David? Where's David?
He's up there.
Oh, I see him, I see him, I see him.
There you go.
Now we can reread it. It even lines up. 10%. Yes.
I put of the
Is it one time supposed to have a hyphenation?
Yes, that's why it
A
has
dash.
the underline.
I think it's supposed to be a dash in between one and time.
Perfect.
Go ahead.
Would you like me to reread it? Okay. Be it hereby resolved that the executive, Laura Lee, do I need to start at the top?
Yes.
Okay. Be it hereby resolved that the Executive Compensation Evaluation Committee recommends to the Board of Directors of the Brazos River Authority adoption of the following resolution. Be it resolved by the Board of Directors of the Brazos River Authority that the sustained exemplary performance by the General Manager CEO warrants an annual salary increase of 10% of his existing salary and justifies a one-time merit bonus of 10% of his existing salary.
You've heard a reading of the resolution. A motion was made by Director Savage and a second made by Director Crone. Please poll the board.
Presiding Officer Flores.
Yes.
Director Tallis.
Yes.
Director Taylor.
Yes.
Director Abraham.
Yes.
Director Bourne.
Yes.
Director Fernandez.
Yes.
Director Henderson.
Yes.
Director Huber.
Yes.
Director Crone.
Yes.
Director Lattimore.
Yes.
Director Leslie.
Yes.
Director Lloyd.
Yes.
Director Luton.
Yes.
Director Rankin.
Yes.
Director Sanderson.
Yes.
Director Savage.
Yes.
Director Smith.
Yes.
Director Wilson.
Yes.
David, congratulations. You have encountered many things, from COVID to the ice storm to the sunset, and putting a strong team in place. And we want to say thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much, and this is very generous, and I'll tell you, I don't worry about our challenges because our staff is just so absolutely amazing. And it is a blessing to come to work every day and be surrounded by people that are a lot smarter than I am. Thank you.
All right, it is about 20 till 12. We're going to take a 5-minute break, come back and do a couple of agenda items, and then we'll break for lunch, all right? All right, agenda item number 8. Report and possible discussion on legislative update by Matt Phillips, Legislative Governmental Affairs Manager. Matt?
Good morning. This is my usual post-session legislative update, and usually when I give it, the legislature is no longer in session, which is great, and everybody's happy. And obviously, that's not the case right now. Any of y'all that have seen the news know that they are back in special session. Not a very productive special session right now, but they are in session. I'll start by talking a little bit about the special. I won't spend a ton of time on it because it doesn't really relate to us. I'll go through some of the things that passed during the regular session, and then I'm going to end by doing a recap of the sunset process and how we're working to implement all of the recommendations that came out of that. So on the special, these are the things that are officially on the call right now. So the governor sets the agenda for the special session. Anything that's in the call can be considered. Members can file bills on any number of subjects, including football conference realignment, but they cannot be acted upon if they are not in the governor's call. So right now, these are the things that are officially in the call. Now pay attention to a couple specific things: the election integrity bill and the legislative branch funding. Those are really kind of the two key things that cause the need for a special session. At the end of the regular session, the Democrats staged a walkout on the last day to pass bills, causing the election integrity bill to fail because they did not have a quorum to be able to pass it. And in a very much, you like that, watch this moment, the governor forced them to come back for a special by vetoing the legislative branch funding in the budget. In the budget is the only bill where the governor has line item veto authority. Everything else, it's either veto or pass, but in the budget, he can veto sections of it, and he vetoed what's called Article 10. That's the article that funds not really the salaries of the legislators, because they only make $7,200 a year and are part-time, but it does fund all of the salaries and benefits of the staff and all of the district office leases and just everything that they're able to do. So if the legislature does not figure out a way to restore legislative branch funding, which will only happen if they also do something with the election integrity bill. The legislative staff and the legislative branch won't have funding as of September 1st. So that's kind of the real meat of the thing. I do think that if they're able to get a deal on the election bill and then restore legislative branch funding, the rest of this stuff may fall off. They may not do it, and they may just move on. But if not, I think if they end up having to call subsequent special sessions because of the fact that several of the Democrats have gone to D.C. and caused them to not have a quorum or be able to conduct business, I think that they'll continue to try to force all of these things through. So it'll be interesting to see how the next several days go. Or next several weeks. The special session ends on August 8th, so he would then have to call another one to force them back again. Yes, sir. There will be a special session on redistricting, but that will be in the fall. It'll be in October and November. They've got to wait to get the census data in order to do that, but there will be one for sure. They won't have a choice on that either. So that's that. And obviously, nothing in this really affects us. I'm monitoring the special, seeing stuff that gets filed. If stuff gets added to the call, we may become interested, particularly if they add public funds for lobbying. That's something that does affect us, so we'll be watching that if it does get added to the call. It's been rumored that it may. And I think I lost my ability. Oh, there we go. Okay. Just basic statistics. These are not what you wouldn't expect coming out of the session where they had to deal with COVID and snowpocalypse. There were less bills passed than there have been in previous sessions, and we kind of expected that. They had a lot to deal with. So again, none of this is surprising. 16% down from 20% or 19% from the previous two sessions, which, depending on where you sit, the less they pass, the better. Very quiet session for water, and we talked about this throughout the entirety of the session. There's very little done on the waterfront, no pun intended, so we didn't really expect a ton to come out of it. These are some of the things that came out. House Bill 2225 just deals with the Texas Water Trust trying to get more water into the water trust or promote donations. 997 would only affect us if we ever have a rate case at the PUC, but it allows for an interlocutory appeal if a rate is found adverse to the public interest. That's a TWCA priority bill and one that we supported. And then 2154, again, only if we go before the PUC. They've got 5 commissioners now instead of 3, and a lot of that came out of the Snowmageddon stuff where they remade what the PUC is going to look like in the future. Groundwater, nothing. Really nothing. Almost every groundwater-related bill, including loser pays and some of the permitting tweaks, they all died. So this is the only thing that is somewhat related to groundwater, the Produced Water Consortium, and that's an effort to try to create a water source out of oil and gas wastewater. And this will be more of a study effort going forward. I think it's generous to call that a groundwater bill, but it's probably the closest thing to a groundwater bill that passed this session. Everything else did not make it. Transparency, always a topic that we pay attention to. 1225 just is a kind of a response to COVID. It allows public entities to kind of relax some of the open records requirements, dates, deadlines. If you're working remotely and in a pandemic and not able to be in the office, you still have to comply, but it just gives you some relaxed ability to do it. We actually never had a problem with this. We were able to handle open records requests even when we were out of the building and complete them in the times that we're supposed to do them. But I guess, this is a tool that we can use if we ever have to. 1154 requires certain political subdivisions to put information on their website. That's really aimed at smaller districts like MUDs and SUDs, that they have to put their board member information when they hold elections, all that kind of stuff. If they have a general manager, the name and bio of that person. This is all stuff we already do, so we comply with that already. Back on transparency, let me back up on that. Let's talk a little bit about what didn't pass. I think everybody, including me, expected the legislature to pass bills that would have allowed the possibility of more virtual meetings. A lot of us thought coming out of COVID, particularly for some of these boards like regional planning boards, flood planning boards, they might create some allowances to allow for more virtual meetings, but that didn't happen. There were several bills filed, and I think there were arguments on both sides. There were some that thought allowing continued virtual meetings might be used as a way to keep the public out, whereas others argued, well, you do these virtual meetings, people don't have to travel, they're more likely to attend. And there was just never agreement on which one it was, and so they ended up not passing any of those, which, again, was a surprise to me and a surprise to a lot of the folks in the TWCA community. We really expected that they would move some of those, but they didn't. Eminent domain, most of 2730 really relates to private use of eminent domain, which does not affect us. There were some tweaks to the landowner's Bill of Rights, which we'll have to comply with because we post that on our website, as all public entities are required to do. Senate Bill 7026 will affect public entities that have the power of eminent domain. Essentially, what it does is right now, there's kind of a list of activities of things that you have to do in order to show progress towards implementing a project if you take property with eminent domain. And right now, you only have to do 2 of those things. This increases the number of activities you have to do to 3 from 2. However, and this was kind of a nod to entities like us that may acquire property and have to hold on to it for long periods of time because of permitting or how long projects take, there is an exemption in that bill for projects that are in the state water plan being implemented by a water district or river authority. So we were able to at least include that to give us some flexibility. Again, eminent domain is not a tool that we seek to use very often and hope to never use anyways. Contracting and employment. So a couple that I'll get you to pay attention to here. House Bill 692 relates to retainage, and this is a bill that's been filed about 4 sessions in a row, and it has died the last 3 for lack of ability to get some agreement between entities like us and contractors. What it does is it limits retainage to 5%. Currently, right now, we use 10%. That's the practice that we have. And so what we were able to do is negotiate some agreed-to language that basically sets a floor. So projects that cost below $5 million, you can still withhold 10% retainage. Those above $5 million, it will be capped at 5%. However, due to some nifty negotiation by us and LCRA and some others, there is an exemption to all of that for projects associated with dams and reservoirs. So we will still be able to withhold 10% on those larger type projects, a la Allen's Creek, or those bigger ones that we do that involve construction and or maintenance of a dam facility. And then 1118, this one is directly going to affect y'all. So right now, BRA staff has to do cybersecurity training, and we are now going to extend that to the officers of our organization. So you guys are going to get to do the same cybersecurity training that we do. We have an in-house program. It will be sent to you. We're working out the details of how we're going to do that. But basically, you'll get kind of an email link. You'll go on. You'll sit through it like us. You'll answer the questions, and it'll send a certificate that you've done it, and that way we can keep it on file. And you'll do it annually. You're welcome. Operations, I'll talk 600 first before 3. 600 is really very simple. It requires TCEQ to keep an inventory of dams controlled by river authorities. In all honesty, this is information that TCEQ already has. They're just going to put it in a database that's on their website. So they'll basically send us a form. We will send them information on all 3 of our dams, including how we maintain them. Just, again, basic information that for the most part they already have. They're just going to collect it in one place. This is really out of response to the dam failure issues that GBRA had several years ago, and they just want to see who controls what dams, how they're being maintained, do you have funding to maintain them, all that type of stuff. So that's what'll be in there. There is exceptions for information that could pose a security threat, so none of that will be on there. And then Senate Bill 3. Senate Bill 3 was the big electric reform bill that came out of Snowmageddon. And 99% of it is related to electricity. But there's that small 1%, it's about 2 sections of the bill that relate to water. And essentially what they require is you to have a plan to maintain operations during an extended power outage of a water facility. Initially, the way the bill passed the Senate, it was real broad, meaning that it could have applied to any one of our facilities. And while we are on the page of trying to maintain operations during an outage, there was a potential that it could apply to facilities that it might not need to apply to. And luckily for us, both the Senate author and Senator Schwertner and the House author and Chairman Patty were very gracious and open to allowing us and other water providers to come into them, help explain to them what we thought should be applicable under the bill and what maybe shouldn't. Because what we wouldn't want to do is spend our customers' money providing backup power to things that may not need to be in operation during that type of event. You need to apply it to the things that really do need to be operating. For us, that is primarily, if not solely, going to be the East Williamson County Regional Water Treatment System, which prior to Senate Bill 3, our folks in Brad's shop and in Blake's shop were already working on plans for continued backup power. So we'll just continue what we were already doing and do it in compliance with the timelines that Senate Bill 3 lays out in order to have a plan filed with TCEQ that says how we're going to maintain power during an extended outage. So again, it was something that we were already going to do. Now, obviously, all water entities will be required to do it, so we'll comply. Yes, sir.
Do the wastewater treatment plants already have backups?
Yes.
They do.
Matt, when will that plan be due, when will the plan be due to the TCEQ?
I think the plan's due next year, March 22. Yeah, and then you've got to implement, you've got to have in the plan your timeline for actually implementing it or putting it in place as part of that. All right, so that kind of covers all the different things that, a lot of the kind of the other ancillary bills that passed. There are others, this is an exhaustive list. After every session, I get with our legal folks. We go through all the different stuff that passed. Anything that needs policy amendments or things like that, you'll see those in September, used to be October, because that's when we usually bring policy changes to y'all. So you'll see those whenever we get them all together. So let's talk about sunset. I want to kind of do a recap of the entirety of that process, how it went into our actual sunset bill, and then where we are going forward. And I'll start by saying, it's always kind of the favorite thing to say as a sunset person, and they actually tell you this when they walk in the door. We're not here to tell you what you do well. That's not our job. We're here to tell you ways that you can be better. And so, I think at times you see audits where they talk about the greatness of your organization and then say, yeah, you can maybe do this better. That's not how Sunset's designed. And they make that very clear when they come in. Our review process lasted from June basically to January, if you count from when Sunset came in the door to when our Sunset report was approved by the Sunset Commission. Obviously, we had a bill, so it lasted longer than that all the way into the session. But in terms of the review process, that was the extent of it. Sunset staff was very good to work with, very professional, very thorough. But when we needed extra time to produce things, which wasn't very often, they were very accepting of that. They gave us leeway when we needed it, so we appreciated that. It started off with a ton of meetings. We had meetings with departments, meetings with individuals, meetings with sub-departments, with the Sunset staff, where they would just pepper us with litanies of questions. We would do basic departmental presentations to show them what we do, but they would also just kind of give us questions, requests for information, which I'll get into here in a second. They also met with specific areas like treatment operations in the lake. So they met with every facet of our organization, every department from top to bottom. What came out of those meetings was what's called these RFIs, and we would get these RFIs every Friday, essentially. And we always look forward to them on Fridays. Basically there were sets of questions which below them had sub-bullet questions with sub-questions and sub-questions and more sub-questions. And, they basically, it essentially led to the production of just gargantuan amounts of information. And I'll take a moment here to thank the staff at BRA that worked on that stuff. So David Thompson and his folks, and Michelle and them, Brad and his folks, Laura Lee and her folks, the Basins, Mike, all those guys. The amount of work that they had to do to produce the information was a ton. And it took up a lot of time. You got to think, particularly for people that have other jobs to do, that are, running basins and reservoirs and treatment ops and everything else. And you've got Laura Lee's folks working our legal contracts and all that, and they're having to take the time to fulfill these RFIs. So I think our staff did an amazing job in making sure that we got Sunset what they wanted, got it to them very promptly and efficiently. And I can't thank them enough for the job that they did. Again, considerable staff time spent on those. The Sunset report that was produced contained very minimal recommendations. And if you've ever seen a Sunset report before or are familiar with the process, what you want to come out of a Sunset report is a real short report. You don't want it to be long. You don't want 15 sections worth of problems. We had 3. And in all honesty, we really only had 2, because one of these sections was across the board recommendations that they make for every entity they review. So you can almost say that doesn't really count because they were going to do those anyway. So in all, we had a very short report with very minimal findings. They initially adopted our report in January, and then we had a sunset bill, obviously House Bill 1570, which included the across-the-board legislative recommendations. That was passed, signed by the governor. And then we will be up for sunset again in advance of the 2033 session. So that tells you how extensive of a process it is. They only do it every 12 years. So that will be the next time that we go through this. So it'll actually be in 2032 in advance of the 2033 session. So let's talk about the 2 different sections of our sunset report. You have statutory recommendations and you have management recommendations. The statutory recommendations are what are called the ATBs, or across the boards. That's what ended up in House Bill 1570. As we've discussed previously, we were already doing most of this stuff. We already allowed public testimony. We already do board member training. We already have a complaint tracking system. We already have a policy that separates staff and day-to-day and board policy-making responsibilities. The only thing we don't have is a grounds for board member removal policy. Like I said, with all of our policy changes, you will see that in September. We will bring one that essentially just mirrors the legislative language, so what's in our statute now. It'll just say the exact same thing, and y'all will be asked to put that probably in our bylaws, is where you all will adopt that into. We also maybe will probably bring a policy on public remarks at board meetings, because even though we've done that as a practice, it's not in our policies. So we'll just put language in there that we allow public remarks at every single board meeting, and have for decades. The management recommendations are the things that did not go into our sunset bill, but we still have to do them. So we're still required to implement them. The first section dealt with project management and implementation. And in all honesty, David Collinsworth would tell you this. We asked Sunset to look at this. We know that we have to implement and put in place a ton of projects over the next several years. We wanted help. We wanted recommendations. We wanted outside eyes looking at our project implementation process and project management process and telling us what we could do better. And so they've given us some things to do, many of which we'll adopt as practices. Probably one of the more important ones in here is providing information on project progression and expenditures. So our goal with that, and we're still working on it, is to essentially create a website that has all of the different projects we're working on, where you can go to the basin by location, see each project, see where it is in its life cycle, find information on it. So that's something that we're going to do to implement that recommendation. On the purchasing side, 99%, if not 100 of this will be adopted through the adoption of procedures that we will put in our purchasing procedure. A bunch of this we're already working on doing. And in total, we expect to have all of this implemented well before the end of this year would be our goal. So what's next? So again, working on implementation. BRA staff and board will implement all of the different legislative and management recommendations. Y'all's role would be, if we have to bring policies to you, we'll bring them for you to adopt, and we'll do that in September. Staff will work on any procedures, such as the purchasing ones, that need to be put in place. And then we will be revisited by two agencies this time in the fall of 2022. And that will be the Sunset staff and then the state auditor staff. And they both have a different role. The Sunset staff will look at whether or not we've implemented the across-the-board legislative recommendations that were in House Bill 1570, which by the time they get here, we will have done. And then the state auditor's office staff will look at our compliance with the management recommendations, which are the non-statutory, and they will see if we have put policies and procedures in place to make sure that we are complying with what they've asked us to do there. So that's the process. And again, there's a good reason and breathing a sigh of relief that we don't go through it except once every 12 years. And we're happy to be done with it. Again, I will say this, and I'm not just saying it to be nice. Sunset staff was very good to work with. You know, I know that it could have been a lot worse. You know, it could have been very adversarial, but it certainly was not. And it was a process that I'm glad we're through, and, you know, we'll implement these things and move forward. And I think that's all I have. I'd be happy to answer any questions. I know that was a lot.
I don't see any questions, Matt. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Moving on to agenda item number 9, report and possible discussion on fiscal year 2021 third quarter budget report by David Thompson, Chief Financial Officer. David.
To expedite this, I mean, you've seen the reports. Did you have any questions on this one? I mean, I usually just flip through this real quick, but if there's no questions, I'd like to go ahead and skip to the next item.
All right. I don't
Perfect.
see any
All right.
questions, David. Thank you. Well, we'll just keep on moving on. Report and agenda item number 10, report and possible discussion on fiscal year 2021 third quarter investment officers report by David Thompson, Chief Financial Officer.
And again, I want to ask if there are any questions. I mean, I'll be more than happy to answer them, but it's pretty much the same information from the second quarter. So to expedite it, I will move on for the next. Any questions? All righty. We're done with that. That
I don't
helps
see any
us get
questions.
to lunch, huh?
Thank you, David. We're going to jump real quick over to agenda item number 13. Report and possible discussion on project delivery by Blake Kettler, Technical Services Manager. And Blake, what you're presenting today Does that meet our sunset recommendation regarding projects, the delivery of projects and the timeframes?
It'll be part of it, yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Well, good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. A few years back, we set a goal as an organization to increase efficiency in project delivery. With that, we made a few changes within the organization. We became more project focused. We put in processes such as a risk management committee and other changes to help us with that project progression. Technical services added a couple groups to our department. We added the project management office and the capital planning department. In addition to those resources that we already currently have, our engineering services, our construction services, and property management. Not saying that we weren't project focused, because that's not the past, or that's not the case. We've always been focused on projects, but we're just looking at fine tuning our project delivery processes and support. But understand though, this is a marathon and not a sprint. This is something that's going to take multiple years to fine tune. The project management office, its purpose is standardizing and improving project delivery, providing support to project managers and project teams, documenting processes to develop consistency, and identifying industry best practices. We also have our capital planning department. So they provide a long-range replacement and repair plan for BRH capital asset portfolio. That includes everything from asset management to capital projects, repair and replacement criteria, new infrastructure, as well as preventive maintenance to our assets. With that, this agenda item, we're going to provide an update on our progress as far as a portfolio view. We're going to look at some of our processes, workload, and scheduling. Next slide. So this is a typical project lifecycle for the Brazos River Authority. Understand that not every project fits into this flow chart, but this is just to give you a general feel of working through the process of a project. If you notice within the hashed line, this area up here, this is where our capital planning department does their work. So things like working through our capital planning process, recommendations, say from reports, different things like that on our facilities, our risk-based asset management and capital planning program that you folks heard about back in, I believe that was in March. And then also the integrated water resources plan. This is where we develop those projects, not only currently what we're working on that year, but out onto the planning horizon in the future. So once we have those projects, the next thing we do is, of course, bring it for your approval here in July. So that kind of gets the project on the books, and then we work through that flow chart or that process to complete the project. So all of our internal coordination, developing our requests for proposals, contracts, things like that. One thing to note are the black bars up here. This is what we call our risk management committee checkpoints. So what that is it's a group, or this was kind of implemented back in 2018, but it's a group made up of general manager, CEO, legal, technical services. F&A will have representation from government and customer relations, environmental and compliance, water services, and then project representation. So your project sponsor, who's the owning department of the project, your project manager, and your project engineer. So what we do is this is basically a risk checkpoint for that project. So any project that touches one of our dams or critical infrastructure, water treatment facilities, any large project that affects the BRA, ratepayers or water supply, and the development of BRA system-wide software. So what is the RMC controlling? It's put into place to improve project delivery, control costs, manage risk, define the project at inception, and then making sure we have the resources available to move the project forward. So our projects are split mostly into four major phases, if you could group them together like that. In this, it looks like an orange or tan. Right here, this is the pre-project, what I would call the RFP selection and contract development phase. So this is the part where there's a lot of internal time spent on that project. Developing, going out with the solicitation for the request for proposals, making the selection there, entering into scope and fee negotiation, so developing that scope of services, which is a back and forth reiteration with us and that firm to develop that there, and then moving forward with the fee, and then again, back and forth till we feel comfortable with it. At that point, that's usually when we start our developing our contract, getting that ready to go, and again, going back and forth for multiple reiterations there, and then ultimately coming for the board of directors approval and execution. The thing to understand there is there's a lot of work on that part of the project, but that's not captured on the actual expenditures because all that's still happening prior to executing the contract. So it's a lot going on there. Your next phase is the consulting and design phase. This is where you're doing your assessments of your facilities, whatever it may be. As an example, working through your design submittals, so your 30%, 60%, 90% design. So we're reviewing specifications and drawings and all that type stuff. So that's kind of what's going on there. Ultimately, leaving that phase with a final design that's ready to put out for bid. And then we get to our bidding phase in green. That's the basically finalizing that request for bids, putting together the contracts, all the supporting documentation, all that type stuff, and putting that out on the street. Then lastly, we get to construction. So there's finally when we actually start to do some work on the ground. But again, it requires substantial coordination. Behind the scenes with internal and external resources, we've got RPR services going on, construction management, coordination and processing of submittals, contract modifications, change orders, RFIs, daily inspections, testing, et cetera, you name it. There's a lot of moving parts there. Then we move forward to substantial and final completion. So basically, this is just to provide you kind of that 30,000-foot view of what's going on. I'm just hitting the high levels there, but there's a lot that goes into a project. And of course, every project has, its own unique areas. Some may not go to construction, some may not have assessment, things like that. So with that said, here's kind of how we're going to get into the meat of it, of the report. To the left of the line, I'll kind of explain what's going on on the graph. To the left of the red line, those are your sponsoring departments or the departments that own the projects there. To the right of the red line are your supporting departments. So, for example, environmental, if there's an environmental aspect on a project, we provide support to that project, or from technical services, engineering, or purchasing, or procurement, as an example. On the left-hand side here, going up the graph here, that's the number of projects or active projects that we have going on per department. So what you can see, the blue line, let's see, right over here, that blue line, that is this current year, the number of active projects that department has. Moving forward to the right, that's the number of projects here over the next few years that they're planning to take on. So the takeaway is, we're fixing to see an uptick in workload there. We're fixing to see a lot more projects coming on, and understand that this is just a snapshot in time. So this isn't what the situation may be, 6 months from now. The thing about that CIP plan, it's always changing. We're developing it, and especially as we bring on the risk-based asset management, the integrated water resource plan, we're hoping to further develop that out into the future. So if you look at what's in the budget, a lot of these, the requests for additional positions correlate with the rise in project workload that's expected.
Blake, is that a COVID effect? It just seems like the blue bar is very low, and then the orange bar, on every scale is much higher. Did we just have to postpone work or something?
Not necessarily. It's just the way the projects are stacked up. That's the blue bar is currently what we have going on right now. Here over the next few years, there's a lot of other projects that we're trying to kick off. We're working through, so basically we have a slug of projects we're trying to move forward. So as we close some of those projects out, we're going to be bringing on new projects. I don't know that there's any correlation necessarily with COVID. Here is kind of the portfolio performance. So if you look in 20, a lot of our focus was on like I said, the RFP selection contract development. So there's a huge amount of work going on internally. But that's still, we're at the point to where we're not expending funds. But we're moving projects forward. So once you push those projects around that pie there, that's when we start to, the amount of expenditures are going to come up. So looking forward into 21, you can see that we went from 61% within RFP selection contract development to 32%. So ultimately, we're fixing to have a lot more expenditures hitting the books. This slide here, I know this is a lot of information and can kind of be difficult to read. Ultimately, what you're looking at here, this is kind of a Gantt chart, a collapsed version of a Gantt chart, but basically it was pulled from our scheduling software. The main takeaway these are a list of active projects here. We've got a timeline across the top, and I believe the years are cut off, but basically the green ticker coming down the screen is where we're at in time. This is just a different way to look at the information that was presented. You can see we've gotten past a lot of the scope and fee negotiations, and we're getting to the point to where we're actually executing the work. Again, a lot of our projects span multiple years, so as these projects close out, we'll bring on new additional active projects. We've got currently approximately 30 active projects right now, with about 76 within our portfolio. Uh-oh. I think that was a mess up there. The takeaways, we're making progress with our project portfolio. We're getting ready to spend quite a bit more money as we move these projects forward and continue to work them. And there's going to be not only we have a lot of workload going on right now, but that's about to increase here over the next few years. So you'll probably see some an uptick in requests for additional resources there. And with that, I'll take any questions. Yes, sir.
Just two clarifications, no big deal. Page 3.
Page 3.
Just want to make sure the vertical lines on these boxes, is that like just denoting on the left, following?
Right here?
That just denote like a task grouping, or is it a milestone marker, or what?
That's where we have the risk management committee meetings.
That was for the bottom lines. I'm talking about the left verticals.
These black lines here?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm sorry. Every one of those black lines is for a risk management committee meeting.
Okay, just kind of worked its way around.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
no problem. That's fine. The box in the bottom right-hand corner, in the tan, for your procurement process, I gather that's for engineering services?
Yes, correct.
Is that always an RFP process, or is it like more of an RFQ?
It kind of depends on, the complexities of the project and what we're doing. Sometimes it might be an RFQ, sometimes it might be an RFP, just depending on what the nature of the project is and the work that they're doing.
But it's procurement for professional services?
Correct. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
All right.
Any other questions?
So Blake, just a quick comment. So we were at a conference a couple of months ago, and I was talking to Blake. I said, as board, we always get these projects, and they present either asking us for money or talking about the project. And I was like, I need a visual. I need to be able to see what these projects are and where we are in the timeline. So go down to the graph. Keep going, that one, those. I think that's awesome, because you have all the projects there, we know what the color coding means, and we know exactly where you're at. Blake, you do an amazing job, because you manage all these projects, and you make sure where we are in the timeline, so thank you for doing that. And I would like to see something like this every board meeting, whether it's just in our packet, so that way we know where we are at. Sometimes it seems like we're on projects forever, and when are we ever going to get to red construction or be finished? So
Sure.
thank you for doing
We can make that happen, and I can't take all the credit. We've got a great team here at BRA, so we all step in and help out with the projects. Any other questions, comments?
like, as we see, going into the future, an uptick in requests for resources, I mean, the source of revenue to cover these things, how are we accounting for these projects?
Can you help me out there, David?
You mean as far as cash flow?
Right.
Yeah. In my budget report, I'll show you kind of the 5-year plan where we'll start borrowing money. Right now, we're pretty much flush with a lot of cash. Checking $18 million to start off with the next budget period. So those capital projects for FY '22 will be paid out of reserves. And then going into next year, we still have more reserves, but we'll start borrowing money. So all of that is planned in the cash flow that we have coming forward. And I'm just ready to start spending money.
And that's a great question, because that's what's so critical about this tracking right here. Because holding project managers accountable for their timeline impacts how David invests our money, and it invests our bottom dollar. So Blake's group being accountable, monitoring all this, and trying to put in the efficiency measures to make sure that we do this as we say that we're going to do it, saves us money, saves our ratepayers money.
Yes,
If I might piggyback on something that you just said, every week when we receive David's letter, update, and you have the additional attachments that have the projects, some of the projects and where they are. This visual for me really helps link that together, because on those updates it says like what it is, where we are, what the quarterly expectations are. But this is, with the type of person that I am, this is a really great visual to link into that helps me then determine. This really helps me see you're going to need lots of people to do these things. You're going to need David's money. You're going to need all of this. And it just is a really good link for me to see, oh yeah, you're all going to be asking us for this because this is coming up. We're almost to the ground, or to the purple, or to the red. So thank you very much.
Oh, sure.
And David, thank you for also attaching those updates every week. It's very easy. There's so many going on. It's easy to forget what all is out there.
Yeah, we want to make that process better to where you can go on our webpage, and/or the public can go on our webpage and find these bumper stickers and follow along with our projects.
Super. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
All right.
All right.
Blake, thank you very much. Okay, at this time, it's 12:26. We will break for lunch and then return to talk about our budget. Ready? Okay. We are reconvening at 1:07, and we'll start with agenda item number 11. Discussion and possible action on proposed year 2022 strategic plan by Aaron Taylor, Water Services Manager. Aaron?
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and Directors. This afternoon, we're bringing the strategic plan before you in order to adopt the plan, looking forward to FY 2022. I want to point out some of the changes in the process in the development of this year's strategic plan. Matt mentioned the sunset process. As part of the sunset recommendations, we brought the review of the strategic plan to the board earlier this year. We received excellent feedback, comments, and discussion in the strategic plan workshop that was held earlier this year in March. At the workshop, the existing FY 2021 strategic plan was reviewed, and we discussed some of the anticipated changes to the plan. The comments and recommendations in the strategic plan workshop, in combination with the budget process, were the basis of the updates that ultimately formed the proposed FY 2022 strategic plan. Additionally, we provided an overview of the strategic plan in the April 8th brown bag on the Brazos public meeting. This gave us an opportunity to review the strategic plan and highlight it in a public setting. Finally, the proposed FY 2022 strategic plan was posted on our website in late June for public comment. So we received one comment focusing on the need to include debris removal in the plan. We don't see debris removal as part of our mission or within the goals and objectives and strategies within the plan. Debris removal is addressed on a case-by-case basis within the BRA when debris impacts infrastructure related to the reservoirs. No other comments on the plan were submitted as part of the posting. And the complete proposed FY 2022 plan was submitted as part of the board packets to everyone. I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone may have before we have a resolution.
On the question about debris removal, when they asked that, did you respond to them? Or is that part of the process? We did. Okay.
Any other questions for Aaron? All right, Aaron, I don't see any. Go ahead and read the resolution.
Be it resolved by the Board of Directors of the Brazos River Authority that the strategic plan, including the mission statement, guiding principles, goals, objectives, and strategies, be approved and adopted as presented at the July 26, 2021 meeting.
You've heard the reading of the resolution. Is there a motion to adopt? All right, motion made by Director Taylor, second by Henderson. Director Henderson, please pull the board.
Presiding Officer Flores,
Yes.
Director Tallis,
Yes.
Director Taylor,
Yes.
Director Abraham,
Yes.
Director Boren, Director Fernandez,
Yes.
Director Henderson,
Yes.
Director Huber,
Yes.
Director Crone,
Yes.
Director Lattimore,
Yes.
Director Leslie,
Yes.
Director Lloyd,
Yes.
Director Luton,
Yes.
Director Rankin,
Yes.
Director Sanderson,
Yes.
Director Savage,
Yes.
Director Smith,
Yes.
Director Wilson.
Yes.
Agenda item number 12, discussion and possible action on fiscal year 2022 annual operating plan, budget, and adoption of budget by David Thompson, Chief Financial Officer. David?
Okay, everybody should have gotten your FY '22 budget books last week. So if you didn't get it, let me know, and we'll get you a book for that. But I want to take just a few minutes and recognize two of my staff members that produced these budget books. These folks spend 8 to 9 months a year working on these budget books, and each year they are receiving the GFOA awards for excellence on their budgets. These folks are just the hardest working, dedicated BRE employees. First, I'd like to have Michelle Drouar stand up, please. She's our budget manager. And April Coleman is the budget analyst. I just want to thank them. I really don't know how they do it, but they do put together an amazing book. So let's take a look at the budget. I do want to back up and say on June 22nd, we did have our customer meetings, and we did present to the upper basin, central basin, and lower basin the budgets. Got no negative feedbacks from that. We did complete our cost reimbursable customer meetings, and we've got that completed. We made a few more adjustments to the budget for cost reimbursable, and I'm feeling pretty good that the budget's going to be fine. So I do want to kind of walk through this. It's pretty much kind of a repeat of what we saw in May, but I'll just kind of point out some of the differences that we picked up because some of the numbers did change. If we look at the water supply expenditures, it's still about a $3 million increase, and three variables were basically the new hires we have, the Corps of Engineers, basically increases they had from last year, and then also we have a 5% salary increase in that. Now, there was a little bit of adjustment on this one of about $300,000. We found some savings in some of the departments. So that's the adjustment that we have from last time that you saw it on May. If you go into the debt service, subject to coverage, the same number, it's East Williamson County. The debt service, not subject to coverage, is basically the Army Corps of Engineers, the loans we have for the water storage that we have, as well as the Allen's Creek. The 30%, plus we've added the service debt of 70% for Houston in that one. Next is the operating projects, and these are projects that are studies, assessments. They're not building out major infrastructures as capital projects are. So the number went down to 59.4. So now looking at the revenue section, now stop me if anybody has any questions, but the non-system revenues did change a little bit. It went up about 100,000. There were some rate adjustments that we were able to do to increase that money. It was about 100,000, that's all. Other water revenues is basically your East Williamson County treated water we sell. We have Sugar Land in there. We have water permits, interest income from our investments. That number did not change either. So now just looking at the debt coverage requirements, as you remember, the 1.3 is a board requirement, but it's also a bond covenant requirement too. And it's simply taking 30% of the 2.5 East Williamson County, and that's 761. So you do take your 59.4, subtract out the 18.6, add back in the 761, and we're required, we need 41.6 million from our sister rate holders. You divide that by the 483, you get 86. We had 87 the last time, so we didn't have to use as much rate stabilization reserve. So it's only 1.5 versus 1.9. So we get it down to $83. This is the numbers we've shown to our customers, and that's what I presented to you in the board in May. I went kind of fast through that, but this is pretty much a repeat from May. Any questions? Numbers are pretty much the same that we showed before. 724,000 acre feet is under contract. 67% of it is your system rate holders. You have utilities and two-tier, and remember 2 tiers is one, you pay one rate for the water used and a lesser amount for the water not used. Those are 2 next largest acre feet that we have out there and some of the oldest contracts we have too. Revenues at 78.5. We talked about the non-system water sales increase of about 100,000. Cost reimbursable did change a little bit. We had about 500,000 after the customer meetings we had with them, the increase in what billable to them. We also have a copper ion generator and basically the phase 3 pumps in the Williamson County Regional Raw Water Line. We reclassified, we put those back into as a revenue item because we do bill them to the customer. So later on, I'll show you where the expenses are and then show you how that works into the calculations. This is just looking at our rates here, and basically the 2 rates that the board will be approving is the $83 and then the 70% for the agriculture of the 58.1. The other rates are set by contracts. A lot of them are set by CPI indexes that come out in November. So these are averages and they're estimates at this time. Let's talk about expenses. We already talked about the 5% increase, the employee cost index and the merit pool. We have 9 full-time positions that we're adding, and that eliminated 3 part-time positions. And then the O&M expenses for the Corps of Engineers, which takes care of our 8 core lakes, it increased from last year. Talking about the Army Corps of Engineers, the O&M is about 6.3 million. The debt service we pay for the water storage is about 1.6. That's 7.9 million, which equates to about $16 an acre foot included in the $83. Let's just take a look at the expenses. If you take a look at the cost reimbursable, it's 15.1, not 18.3 that we talked about before. The 3.2 is coming out of the capital project that will be paid by the customers. And then the rest is basically the 59.4 that we talked about earlier in the first slide. This is how we plan to spend the money for the water supply, O&M. And this is basically by department and groups. Just kind of the major ones we have. Possum Kingdom actually went down, and that is because we had a $1.3 million crane that was built into the FY21 budget. If you look at the federal reservoirs, it went up by $1 million. That's the Corps of Engineers increases. You also had the debt service increase of 1.4 for Houston's portion of the 70%. And then across the board, you have the 5% merit increase, and then you also have the new hires that we talked about. This is the operating projects, and as I mentioned before, these do not build out major infrastructure. They're studies, this can be software, they're assessments, and even repairs if we have those as well. Therefore, they're included in the system rate. Let's talk about the capital improvement plan. Again, majority of this is the new waters. It's better just to show you the details of it. And you can see that Allen's Creek is the biggest portion of this at $40 million. You can also see the two Williamson County Regional Water Line, Pump 3, Phase Pump 3, and the copper ion generator. Both of those is in the capital plan because we will be doing the capital projects for it, but it's not paid for out of our reserves. Again, we showed this in May, just how busy we are. And going back to what Blake was talking about, we have a lot of projects and a lot of spend in the next 5 years. So this is just kind of illustrates the two types of business, making sure we all understand that we have a water supply business and then the cost reimbursable. And as you can see, the 18.3 revenue, the $15 million O&M's off adjusted, and then the payment of the 3.2 nets out to zero with our cost reimbursable customers. This slide helps to point out the operations surplus is the debt coverage, the 761, but we start off with $118 million is what we project. We'll be spending the money. Spending the money on our capital projects, which then in turn means that the system rate holders do not get impacted by what we're doing. We'll be able to pay for it out of our reserves and still end up with about $55 million carried into the next year to help pay for capital projects from that. So it's a good news story to our system rate holders. Just to give you an idea of the approved buckets or the reserve that the board approved with. Rate stabilization reserve, we talked a little bit about that. That helps us smooth out the rates if we have spikes, which I'm not planning on having any more spikes. And it also pays for our capital projects. Contingency fund is basically for unanticipated budget O&M expenses. Working capital is 90 days of our water supply expenses. Self-insurance is more of a risk payments for like anything that we might get hit with on insurance that is not covered in our insurance policies. This is a current debt outstanding, and this is just the current debt. I did not put in Allen's Creek 70% in here because it's a balance sheet adjustment, so it didn't really have it. I do have the debt service in the 5-year plan and next year's plan, but until we can kind of settle out to figure out what that debt is, it's not in this number. If you did, and it's $14 million, it would be 82.9. So let's take a look at the 5-year plan. And the non-system is consistent with the contracts. Remembering the non-system rate holders, those contracts are set on their rates. O&M expenses increased by a historical 10-year index rolling average. Debt service assumes no existing debt until 2023, 26. But I do have the Allen's Creek 70% in the debt service for the 5-year plan. So taking a look at the numbers, you can see we start borrowing money in 23 if we do meet our spend on capital projects and operating projects. Rate stabilization reserve, my plan is to use it one more year in 23, and then we're back on track on the rates. And I think the rates stay pretty stable going out and averaging around 4 to 5% per year. Any questions on this? This is kind of a busy slide, but it shows you what my budget manager does in balancing to make sure that we get the rates correctly, but then also meet all the different requirements by the board as well as the debt covenants. And then here is basically a simplified, just summary look at this. Meeting the debt coverage, but then shows you the rate increases that we have out through 26. And these rates are almost dead on to what I gave out last year's in projections. And just to show you that my plan is to keep it an even keel going on out. And my goal is not to incur any major spikes for our customers as we build out our infrastructure. So any questions? You guys are quiet. All right. So with that, we'd like to read the resolution. Oh, go ahead, Alan.
Real quickly, a lot of people and entities find the GFOA budget award to be much more difficult to obtain and maintain than the certificate on reporting financial statements. So thank you for the professionalism and doing all it takes to make that happen, to get that award, and thanks for some of the top.
It is. It's really something. Thank you. So with that, I'll have Stephen read the.
Please read the resolution.
Be it resolved by the Board of Directors of the Brazos River Authority Board that the fiscal year 2022 annual operating plan and multi-year capital improvement plan budget as presented to the board at the July 26, 2021 meeting be approved and adopted, including the following provisions. Be it further resolved that the general manager, CEO, is hereby authorized to make expenditures and enter into contracts for expenditures as listed in the budget in accordance with the Brazos River Authority's General Operations Practices Policy 2.1, Authority and Responsibilities of the Board of Directors and General Manager, Chief Executive Officer. Be it further resolved that the General Manager, CEO, is hereby authorized to make adjustments in the individual line item amounts of the budget, provided that the total amount expended shall not exceed the total amount authorized for each operating division as follows. Water supply, $59,447,961. Cost reimbursable, $15,071,458. Total operating budget, $74,519,419. Water supply, $62,191,000. Cost reimbursable, $3,242,000. Total capital budget, $65,433,000. Be it further resolved that the board hereby adopts the multi-year capital improvement plan as presented in the budget. Be it further resolved that the board hereby approves and adopts a rate of $83 per acre foot of water annually for fiscal year 2022 for both the system water rate and the interruptible water rate. Be it further resolved that the board hereby approves and adopts a rate of $58.10 per acre foot of water annually for fiscal year 2022 for the agricultural water rate. Be it further resolved that the board hereby approves and adopts a methodology for quarterly payments or monthly payments to include a multiplier to be applied to the annual payment to allow the Brazos River Authority to recover interest lost on any unpaid balance plus a service charge for administrative costs, including but not limited to costs involving the billing, accounting, and collecting for the quarterly or monthly payments. Be it further resolved by the board that the methodology used to determine the multiplier consists of applying the current savings rate the Brazos River Authority would be earning on the funds if paid in full annually to the unpaid balance on a monthly or quarterly schedule to determine lost interest, and that the service charge shall remain at $20 per invoice to cover additional administrative costs for billing, accounting, and collecting the associated payments. The annual interest rate of 4% and a daily interest rate charge of 0.0109589%, 4% divided by 365, to be applied for quarterly and monthly payments for fiscal year 2022 remains the same.
You've heard the reading of the resolution. Is there a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Motion made by Director Henderson, second by Judy Crum. Please poll the board.
Presiding Officer Flores,
Yes.
Director Tallis,
Yes.
Director Taylor,
Yes.
Director Abraham,
Yes.
Director Bourne, Director Fernandez,
Yes.
Director Henderson,
Yes.
Director Huber,
Yes.
Director Crown,
Yes.
Director Lattimore,
Yes.
Director Leslie,
Yes.
Director Lloyd,
Yes.
Director Luton,
Yes.
Director Rankin,
Yes.
Director Sanderson,
Yes.
Director Savage,
Yes.
Director Smith,
Yes.
Director Wilson.
Yes.
Motion carries. Moving to item number 14, discussion and possible action on Texas Water Development Board Regional Water Planning Contract by Aaron Abel, Water Services Manager. Aaron?
Thank you. Let me show Aaron something. Okay, well, the sixth cycle of regional water planning is kicking off with initial funding to support the development of the next round of regional water plans. This is the start to a 5-year process that will culminate in the 2026 regional water plans and the 2027 state water plan. In March, the Brazos G Regional Water Planning Group selected BRA as the political subdivision to serve as sponsor and administrative agent for the next cycle of regional water planning. For historical purposes, BRA has served as a sponsor and the administrative agent for Brazos G since the inception of regional and state water planning process over 20 years ago. As a sponsor and administrative agent of Brazos G, we are required to enter into a regional water planning contract with the Texas Water Development Board to receive grant funds and then to support the Brazos G regional water planning process. Additionally, we must maintain a professional services agreement with a technical consultant that performs and completes the necessary tasks to compile the regional water plan. The Brazos G Regional Water Planning Group selected Carollo Engineering as the technical consultant in this next cycle of regional water planning a couple months ago. So this item requests authorization to enter into and execute a regional water planning contract with the Texas Water Development Board for about $338,000 in order to support the Brazos G Regional Water Planning Group activities. We're also requesting authorization to negotiate and execute a professional services agreement for an amount of $338,000 with Carollo Engineering to complete the tasks identified within the regional water planning contract scope of work. So I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone may have.
I don't see any questions.
We have a resolution, I think.
All right, go ahead and read the resolution.
Be it resolved that the Board of Directors of the Brazos River Authority hereby authorizes the General Manager, CEO, as administrative agent for the Brazos G Regional Water Planning Group to enter into and execute a regional water planning contract with the Texas Water Development Board for $338,173 in order to support the Brazos G Regional Water Planning Group activities, and be it further resolved that the Board of Directors of the Brazos River Authority hereby authorizes the General Manager, CEO, as administrative agent for the Brazos G Regional Water Planning Group to negotiate and execute a professional services agreement for an amount up to $338,173 with Carollo Engineering to complete tasks identified in the regional water planning contract scope of work.
You've heard the reading of the resolution. Is there a motion to adopt? Motion made by Director Fernandez, second by Henderson. Please poll the board.
Presiding Officer Flores.
Yes.
Director Tallis.
Yes.
Director Taylor.
Yes.
Director Abraham.
Yes.
Director Warren. Director Fernandez.
Yes.
Director Henderson.
Yes.
Director Huber.
Yes.
Director Crown.
Yes.
Director Lattimore.
Yes.
Director Leslie.
Yes.
Director Lloyd.
Yes.
Director Luton.
Yes.
Director Rankin.
Yes.
Director Sanderson.
Yes.
Director Savage.
Yes.
Director Smith.
Yes.
Director Wilson.
Because of my position on Brazos G, I will abstain.
Motion carries. Item number 15, discussion and possible action on fiscal year 2021 budget amendment by David Thompson, Chief Financial Officer. David?
Okay, this amendment's perfect timing after approving the budget, because when you were approving the budget, you were approving basically ceilings for different O&M expenses, one for water supply and one for cost reimbursables. And anytime we project or feel like we're going to go over one of those ceilings, we must come back to the board for an amendment. In this situation, we have a cost reimbursable customer, Williamson County Regional Rural Water Line, which is Georgetown, Round Rock, and Brushy Creek Municipal Utility District. We projected, or with us working with the customer, we projected a 25,000 acre feet of water be transported between Lake Steelhouse Hollow and Lake Georgetown. In June, we already achieved over 32,000 acre feet because of the drier conditions earlier in the year. And those drier conditions means we have more electricity costs. So what we're looking at is increasing the budget, the ceiling budget, by 600,000 to cover not only what was overage, but to give us a little room to make sure that we don't have any problems. We still have the month of August to go through. So you can see here in this chart how dry it was in 21. So that can match pretty much to some of the other ones. It is a cost reimbursable, so we will be billing the customer dollar for all the expenses incurred. Now, the 600,000 is, I'm conservative, so I'm making sure there's plenty of room in the ceiling because I don't want to go over budget at August 31st. But it doesn't mean that we will bill the customer 600,000. It just says that we have that built into the ceiling. So what I'm planning is I'd like to raise the FY21 ceiling for cost reimbursable from 14.7 to 15.3 million to make sure we have room to cover it before August 31st. Any questions?
Any questions for David? All right. Read the resolution.
Be it resolved that the Board of Directors of the Brazos River Authority hereby authorizes and approves amendments to the fiscal year 2021 cost reimbursable operating budget as follows. Increase the cost reimbursable FY 2021 operating budget and corresponding revenues by $600,000 from its current level of $14,685,273 to $15,285,273.
You've heard the reading of the resolution. Is there a motion to adopt? Director Sanderson and Director Savage. Motion made by Director Sanderson, second by Director Savage. Please poll the board.
Presiding Officer Flores.
Yes.
Director Tallis.
Yes.
Director Taylor.
Yes.
Director Abraham.
Yes.
Director Warren. Director Fernandez.
Yes.
Director Henderson.
Yes.
Director Huber.
Yes.
Director Crown.
Yes.
Director Lattimore.
Yes.
Director Leslie.
Yes.
Director Lloyd.
Yes.
Director Luton.
Yes.
Director Rankin.
Yes.
Director Sanderson.
Yes.
Director Savage.
Yes.
Director Smith.
Yes.
Director Wilson.
Yes.
Motion carries. Moving on to agenda item number 17. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. There you go. Director Henderson, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. With no further business, we are adjourned at 1:37.